Hello and welcome to IABM TV. Today I'm joined by Tom Lithgow, Product Manager at Bluefish444. Tom, welcome to IABM TV.
Thanks very much, Ben.
So Tom, what announcements has Bluefish444 had over the last few months, and have these been affected at all by recent events?
Yeah, so Bluefish has been working on quite a few different product upgrades and also some new products that were probably planned to be announced and demonstrated at an AB show this year, so around April. Obviously, with COVID-19, those plans have shifted a little, but we have been continuing to develop, and we have made some product releases. So some of those announcements, we've released a new SDK supporting our products. So a bit of background, Bluefish make SDI video interfaces. So this is one of our cards here. So we can input and output SDI video into workstation and server computers. So we've released a new SDK, and the SDK allows people to integrate with those cards. So third-party developers can develop support for capturing from SDI sources, encode to their file formats, or make live broadcast graphics, and then output those for broadcasting television workflows and all sorts of different workflows across different industries, like live events and immersive graphics and that kind of thing. So that was one of the big announcements, was the new SDK. And we've also, based on that SDK, we'll make a professional installer release. So the professional installer supports the same hardware, but provides support for platforms like Adobe Premiere Pro, Avid Media Composer, and Pro Tools, and those kind of applications where you can integrate the Bluefish cards into those systems and output and input video in a similar way, but for an end user.
Okay, and so Tom, what products have been the main focus of Bluefish444 and your customers recently?
Sure. So in addition to the video cards, so this one I showed before is actually a new product. It's the Kronos K8. So that has 8 channels of SDI that can be inputs or outputs. So that's one of the new products that we've released recently. That's sort of the next generation Bluefish video interface. That's supported by the SDK that I mentioned earlier. But we also have server products. So we have an appliance called Ingestor. So Ingestor server is a 3RU rack mount server that can be installed into a customer's site to ingest video from using the Bluefish cards from any SDI source. So it records up to 4 channels of SDI video, compresses those to industry standard codecs. So we can record to ProRes or DNX HD, XD-Cam, a lot of those codecs that are used in production and post-production workflows. Those files are recorded to either a local storage or across the network to a network-attached storage. And those files can then be accessed immediately by editors. So we support something called growing files, or edit while record, which allows the recording to continue, and then editors and content creation tools to access those files off of the network attached storage and start to edit those programs together, or highlight reels or little snippets for social media. They can be edited together in a very, very short time frame because the recording is still ongoing while the editors are starting to create their pieces, and then export those or play those out for a live event, for example. So this is the kind of workflow that we're supporting with Ingestor server, and we've made some really fantastic advances in that development. So we're working on the next major release for Ingestor, which will add a few really key features. This is what we would have been announcing and showing at an AB show this year if it wasn't put off. But basically, the new features that are really in some ways very useful for today's environment, we're supporting in the next major update. We're supporting proxy file creation, so you can record those industry standard formats like DNX HD and ProRes that I mentioned earlier, but also simultaneously record a proxy, and that can be uploaded to used by the editors to start to work on the program remotely, so you could actually upload that to the cloud and access that across public internet. So you can actually start to work on those things remotely. It gives a live kind of production workflow in greater distances. So that's one of the key features. The other one that's a big ticket item that's going to be announced and released very shortly, or going to be released very shortly, is an API to allow Ingestor to be controlled across networks. So it's a REST API, a JSON REST API. So that allows, and we've developed a client to go along with that, and that allows all of the functionality inside Ingestor to be accessed through a browser interface. So you can use a standard computer browser and control any of the normal record functions within Ingestor server, or in fact multiple Ingestor servers across any remote machine that's on that system's network. So that's another sort of remote access to the Ingestor server, so that you can have multiple clients accessing multiple servers simultaneously. So that's one of the big things that we would have been showing at NAB, and it's generated a lot of interest.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, it sounds, Tom, like a lot of these solutions massively help to streamline and improve people's efficiency and workflows. But why else do customers choose to work with Bluefish 444 products?
Yeah, sure. So you just touched on one there, the efficiency gains with things like Ingestor. So our hardware actually supports inputs and outputs, like I said. So you can actually use a firmware that has some of these HDBNCs to be programmed as inputs and some of them as outputs. In that scenario, you could actually be using the same piece of hardware and the same workstation, and therefore the same operator could be ingesting multiple streams of video on that card and actually playing out to an SDI monitor or a HDMI monitor using the HDMI connections on some of our cards. So that's an efficiency gain, because obviously you can use one workstation and one operator, whereas in the past you would have had to have multiple machines controlled potentially by multiple operators, all doing one particular task. And so Bluefish hardware, SDK, driver and software are all built for multitasking, where you can get those efficiency gains. We're also all about, so we actually have something on our website called the Bluefish Advantage, and that kind of highlights some of the things that I'm going to talk about. But basically, it comes down to the fact that Bluefish maintain acquisition quality. So we have something called the 12-bit pipeline in our cards, which basically allows the video to be captured from SDI sources, which is generally in the broadcast world 422 IABM. That can be converted to an RGB format or any format that the user wants to capture into the host machine. And that conversion is done at a very high quality, so it's very high precision. We also have very reliable and very stable drivers, an SDK for our platform. So our cards are used in broadcast workflows, the same cards that you would use in your Adobe Premiere Pro system or in Ingestor server or in Avid Media Composer. Those same cards, those same drivers are actually used for broadcast workflows with some of our partners that we've been in the industry with for a long time, like we support VizRT for graphics and Car and Higo. We have a very long list of OEM customers that use our SDK and build our hardware into their solutions, and they choose us because of the reliability and the quality that they can rely on, because obviously those things, they don't want a system going down in the middle of a broadcast. So that's some of the reasons that people choose Bluefish over other offerings in that space.
Okay, well, Tom, thank you very much for joining us today.
No, thank you.
You can find out more about everything we've discussed with Tom today at bluefish444.com.